So welcome to the Center Intuit, the Center for Intuitive and Outsider Arts, and this wonderful program that we have with the Outsider Art Museum in Amsterdam. We are speaking to you from Chicago. My name is Paula Santos, and I'm the Senior Manager of Learning and Engagement at Intuit. We are this year celebrating our 30th anniversary, so happy birthday to Intuit, and welcome to our celebration, which are all these programs that we have in 2021. As I mentioned earlier, please put any thoughts and comments or just moments of joy and observation into the chat, and we will refer back to them through the conversation. Our two speakers today who will be in conversation is our President and CEO, Deb Kerr, and the CEO of the Outsider Museum, Hans Looijen. Thank you, Hans, for that. And for those of you who are joining us and are wondering a little bit more about our speakers, I am going to tell you a little bit about them before handing over the floor to them. So we'll start with Hans. Hans is the CEO of both the Outsider Art Museum, co-located at the Hermitage, Amsterdam, and the Museum of the Mind in Dolhuis, Haarlem, a recently renovated space that takes visitors on a journey through 700 years of the mind's care, thinking, and imagination. In 2016, Hans founded the Outsider Art Museum to provide a Dutch venue for works of art outside the established canon of the Western art world. Throughout his career, Hans has been guided by his dedication to making museums catalysts for new perspectives and greater connectedness. He abides by the belief that museums can bring about societal change and inward reflection on long-held beliefs. Hans also serves as chairman of the Willem van Genk Foundation and an advisor to the Mondrian Fund, the largest Dutch cultural fund. And next is Deb Kerr, the president and CEO of Intuit. She comes from a 17-year career at the Shed Aquarium, where she held progressively responsible positions, including executive vice president from 1999 to 2010. She serves on the board for the Merit School of Music and on the National Wildlife Federation's Great Lakes Leaders Council. She is a member of the American Alliance of Museums and a past board member at the National Veterans Art Museum. She is also a guest speaker on issues related to museum relevance, teen empowerment, and activating the public for social good. So now that we know the wonderful expertise of our guest speakers today, I'll hand over the reins to Deb. And please, Deb, let me know when you'd like me to start the presentation.
First, let me just welcome everyone again and welcome my friend and colleague, Hans Looijen from the Outsider Art Museum in Amsterdam. Thank you so much, Hans, for joining me. And Paula, why don't we just go ahead and kick it off with a video so we can see Intuit's exhibition, Chicago Calling, in situ, right in place at the Outsider Art Museum through the wonders of video. We're going to be able to take a look. Right, fantastic. So, Hans, I think it's very interesting that you were able to see the exhibition in Chicago and in Paris. The full schedule was Chicago in 2018. And I want to say big thanks to the Terra Foundation for American Art, which sponsored a citywide event called Art Design Chicago. And we had the exhibition here to start with to celebrate that event. And then the exhibition traveled to Paris and the Kunsthaus Kaufbeuren in Germany in 2019. And in 2020, it was at the Collection de l'Art Brut in Lausanne, Switzerland, which of course had to deal with the COVID situation. And now the exhibition is here inside this building, right, in Amsterdam at the Hermitage Museum. And you have not yet been able to open the exhibition. Tell us what's going on.
Sadly not. No, you're looking. So it's right at the Amstel River, where Amsterdam derives is a dam in the Amstel River. So here's the river, and there's this 17th century building, which is now the Hermitage Amsterdam, which is huge. And we have one wing, not the entire wing, but space within that building, which is great because that's where all the people go if you want to see amazing art from the Hermitage. So all the things that Saar collected, including famous Dutch paintings by Rembrandt, they every now and then they come to the Netherlands, jewelry, customs, dinnerware. And now they have an amazing collection of knights. So you have armor from all over Europe, Middle Ages, and amazing ivories from France, well, art from Limoges and everything. And that's where we are, waiting to reopen because we're closed now on government's orders. And there's a small experiment in 2 weeks, Hermitage, sadly not us, can participate in. So you have a public which has been tested, a PCR test, and it's negative. They can reserve a time slot and show their test result at the door and are welcome in the night's exhibition. And we hope that the government will lift all measures later this month or in May. And then we can finally open Chicago Calling, an amazing exhibition.
We're all sending our good karma your way for a speedy opening. So let's turn to the next slide, Paula. Originally the exhibition was going to open in January. It has not opened yet, and you were going to close in May. But you and I have worked some magic, and I know that some of our lenders to the show are actually joining us today. And thank you, lenders of artwork, because we're going to be able to extend the show until September 5th in hopes that we can really provide an opportunity, a wide opportunity for your audiences in the Netherlands and beyond to see this exhibition once it's able to open. So next slide, please, Paula. So here we go, Chicago Calling, Art Against the Flow. Here's a couple of shots of the text. And I'm really pleased to see, I did a close-up look at these shots that you sent, Hans, and I see that we have the text in Dutch and in English, which is fantastic.
Yes, because for us it's important to, well, of course, Dutch is a very small language in the world, and English is so much bigger. So yeah, we do that with all our exhibitions, but especially now having you as our esteemed guests. And I also want to add to what you just said, Deborah. It's amazing of all these collectors who have put so much trust in you and ultimately us as well, and have granted us this extension. So thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. It's been a great partnership. I remember, Hans, when we opened the exhibition here in Chicago, a couple of your staff came for the grand opening, yeah. And then you were here in the fall during our summit that we held. Yeah. So you were able to see the exhibition in place here, and you were really so enthusiastic. You said, you know, you said, we have to have the show, please, we have to have the show in Amsterdam. And we were so excited because originally we had 3 venues and we added Amsterdam. And who knew back then in 2018, Hans, where we would be today, but it's been an absolute pleasure to be partnered with you and your team. And let's go to the next slide. And Jan kindly points out that we have one of the co-curators of the show, maybe both of them may have been on with us today. So the co-curators of the show are Lisa Stone and Kenneth Burkhart, and they did a fabulous job assembling these works and working with our lenders. And here we can see close up one of the labels, a Lee Goede label with information both in Dutch and English. And let's go to the next slide, Paula.
So this is a picture from the installation. As you can see, the texts are not yet fixed. But maybe, can I say why I'm so pleased that
yes, please.
This collection? But to the Dutch public, this art brew, outsider art, vernacular art. I know this is a term which has been proposed a while ago in Washington. It's not very well known. So the people come to the Hermitage, see all the splendor of the Tsars, and they stumble upon us, although we have also a dedicated public now in the first month, which absolutely wants to see our exhibition and not the Hermitage, to the surprise of the cashiers. But this is art not well known in the Netherlands. And then this whole rich collection from Chicago, which is now on display and on show with amazing artists. So people don't know that much about art brew, outsider art, and then they are completely unaware of this amazing fountain and this rich collection, which is in the world, in Chicago. So what we do is try to create a space where the public can understand that what is on show and what is from our own collection, which has European, although some Asian works, it's not isolated. It's everywhere in the world, and there's great collections. We've shown part of the Princeton collection from Germany. We've showed collection from Collection d'Abru, Japanese, Chinese, and now we have art from Chicago. And because Dubuffet went to Chicago, and we had a lecture at the summit in the Arts Club, it was enlightening for me to learn of this history, and I thought it's important as a development of the foundations of Abru, outsider art, that we should try and bring to the Dutch public some of these amazing artists and their work. So I'm very thankful that we can now. Yeah.
Let me build on that a little bit, Hans. The story of the exhibition is really the story of Chicago being a place that very early on was enthusiastic about this genre, embraced it, recognized it as a legitimate genre of art. And of course, one of the sort of fathers of this, of the entire movement was French artist Jean Dubuffet, who began accumulating this art, came to America in the early 50s, and in 1951 gave a talk, as you referenced, Hans, at the Arts Club of Chicago to an audience that was pretty enthusiastic, was already experiencing this art. And over the years, faculty members at the School of the Art Institute and others looked for this art in Chicago. Oftentimes I get asked, why were there so many outsider artists from Chicago? And I say, this art is everywhere, but Chicagoans were looking for it and embracing it and shining a light on it. So here we have the works of 10 artists that were people who came to art making through a non-traditional pathway. Some of them were immigrants, some of them came to Chicago as part of the Great Migration, but all people who had really dramatic lived experiences that come out through the art. And one of our basic tenets is that powerful art can be made by unexpected creators who are found in unexpected places. So here you have the works of William Dawson. Was there an artist? Let's go to the next slide, Paula. Was there an artist, Hans, that you discovered or rediscovered in this show that maybe spoke to you especially?
It looks like this is timed because this is the one. Joachim, for me, I mean, I saw it once in the catalog, but absolutely astonishing work. Great work, and so powerful, and yeah, and the way he portrays the landscapes, absolutely original, strong, and that's just that we have this ensemble in the exhibition makes me extremely happy. Yes.
Well, since you've mentioned Joseph Joachim, thank you, Hans. It is serendipitously timed, and I also have some Joachims on the wall behind me here today at the museum of a show on highlighting the collection of Victor Keane. And I will mention that the Art Institute of Chicago is planning a major show of Joachim's work that is to open in June and go through, I think, September. And at the same time, please be aware that I and Lisa Stone, Cleo Wilson, others are going to be talking about Joseph Joachim as part of Art Design Chicago Now, an ongoing series of programs that relate to the event in 18 and the event that we are anticipating to do again in 2024. So mark your calendars for, I believe it's May 18th, when we'll be talking again, and make sure that you're on Intuit's mailing list so that you can learn more and check out that conversation. It'll be a little bit later in the day. Folks have joined us from Europe, so you might have to stay up late to watch it or catch it on the recording. So yes, the Joachim work is really fascinating and beautiful. Let's go to the next slide, Paula.
And also, yeah, of course, Henry Darger is smashing. But and I extremely enjoyed the lecture the other day on all the possible backgrounds of his Catholicism and the Vivian girls and Saint Vivian. I was like, could that be true? That would be great if that was really, yeah, that would make everything fit together, but who knows? Further investigations on the way. So I'm looking forward to read that publication.
Well, Hans, I'm going to make you my new PR person because next week we're having a book launch for Lisa Runquist's new book that explores gender fluidity and girlhood and Henry Darger's art. And we'll be talking with her next Wednesday. Is that correct, Lindsay? Is it next Wednesday, Paula? I believe that's right. So we'll be, next Wednesday. So look for that. Another talk with our favorite Darger expert, and we'll be hearing from her about her forthcoming book. And here we have the works of Mr. Imagination, another beloved outsider artist from Chicago. Just amazing work, and so vivid, so beloved by our audiences. And I hope your audiences find it the same, Hans.
Well, yeah, I think it will be smashing, and it's great that it's 3D objects as well. Joachim is of course his drawings, and to me, paper is the means of par excellence for art brut and outsider art. But I personally love the 3D objects, and the throne which we could loan from Paris adds extra to it, because he was working monumental and as well as on small scale, and yeah.
Paula, why don't you show us the next slide? What Hans is referring to is that the exhibition in Paris. Oh, there we have the close-up of some of these smaller works.
Bottle caps, I think it's great, yeah.
Yeah, then you can see the bottle caps, and Mr. Imagination loved to work with found materials. So here you have that. And then the next slide shows us the throne that is owned by the All Saint-Pierre Museum in Paris. And they brought the throne out from storage to put it into the exhibition when it was in Paris. And Hans, you were inspired by that. So you said, I want to borrow that too. So here it is in the middle of the exhibition.
Yes, so it's great, and you have this focal point as well in the middle of the space, and then you have the title on the background, and another. Yeah, you have a kind of a sample of amazing artists, and you see the 3D objects, monumental work, drawings. So it's about Chicago, where you can see. So it gives an image of kind of what's going on and the different ways of expressions of the individual artists. Yeah.
And I want to point out the Wesley Willis pictures in the background, because we're going to see some more Wesley in what the other exhibition spaces did with his works. So let's move to the next slide. So here you have that same throne on exhibition in Paris at the All Saint-Pierre, and it's a very, very different venue. And I thought it would be interesting for our audiences today to see what the different venues did with the exhibition.
Tableau on the left, which is with us now, and the totem, we call it that, on the left side.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a different setting.
Yeah, they have a very dark space, and so what they did was dramatically light each of the objects. And I believe that there are a couple of in addition to the large throne, the small throne, I think one of the pieces on the wall there, the scepter, those are works that are owned by All Saint-Pierre. Mr. Imagination visited All Saint-Pierre and made works and gave works to the museum there, which was a lovely gesture. So they have a very warm and fond remembrance of Mr. Imagination. And let's go to the next slide. Here's another installation view of the exhibition at All Saint-Pierre in Paris. Very different feel. And the next slide, Paula. And here's the exhibition at the Kunsthaus Kaufbeuren in Germany. And I would say it feels to me, Hans, a little bit more like your installation. Here at Intuit, it was very bright. In Paris, it was more dark. And I would say in Switzerland, in Germany, and in Amsterdam, a little more medium light feel to it.
Yeah, a lot depends, of course, on the spaces, but which is striking to me is none of the venues have daylight. So it's all artificial lighting, which of course is good for the artworks, especially if they're on paper. We have LED lighting, so you have no lux at all, but still we keep within the International Museum range of the many lux you can expose. So that's striking to me. And here, as well as with us, you see more like a traditional museum setting. This is a Kunsthalle, so it's an art hall. And we did that deliberately, although we had some wild exhibitions as well. We just closed Willem van Genk, which is our Henry Darger, so to speak. That was like you were inside his head. There's a famous fashion designer who did that. And everything was yellow, and you had a lot of color, and you had sound, you had moving images. So it was like, whoa, where I'm stepping into now. And this exhibition is very museum-like for us. We play with that. We deliberately created kind of a white cube as to give the highest podium in a museum, international museum language, so the public can understand this is valued artwork. I can see it immediately. That's a language we play with, so to speak. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that it's important, you made a note of this, but let me just reinforce it. Each of the museums that exhibited this art adhere to very strict guidelines on temperature, humidity, light, so that we do our utmost to care for these beautiful works wherever they go, and that they have, the works have a similar treatment and experience as they move from institution to institution. Paula, could we look at the next slide, please? Here's the similar works installed at Intuit in 2018. So here you can get what the view was a little bit at Intuit. And what we're looking at here, both in the last shot and this one, are here on towards the right, works by Dr. Charles Smith, the only living artist in the show. And you see these dramatic works. He is a Vietnam veteran. Of course, he is a Black man, and his work really reflects his experiences of both being someone of African descent in the United States and layering on top his veteran experience from the Vietnam War. So very dramatic works that I think were very powerful in the exhibition. And if you turn to the next slide, Paula. Another installation view, very different installation view. You see the Piacenza birdhouses and the Piacenza painting, some works by William Dawson. And one of the main differences in how the exhibition was displayed in Chicago versus some of the other venues, the European venues tended to put the works by one artist together. And one of the things that Lisa and Ken did with the installation here in Chicago was treat it more thematically. So we see here elements of buildings, edifices coming to us together in a wonderful tableau. And Paula, if you'll turn to the next slide, please. So as I was looking at these slides and looking at the comparison, I thought it'd be really helpful if we had one slide that compared 4 venues. So the top left is the Outsider Art Museum in Amsterdam. The bottom left, of course, you just saw that image of Intuit. The top right is the Kunsthaus Kaufbeuren in Germany, and the bottom right is Au Saint-Pierre in Paris. And I think that in 3 of those, you can see the yellow frame around the William Dawson painting and see those displayed differently. And I'll just give you a moment to kind of take these in. You can see the different lighting, different installations, different treatments. And then take note, as I mentioned earlier, of the Wesley Willises that are at the top right and installed in a similar fashion to what we did here in Chicago. And what you have done as well at Amsterdam, Hans.
Yeah.
And then let's turn to the next slide. This is what it looked like in Chicago.
Yeah, I remember that, and I found it very strong that you have these images of street views, and you explained to me that some of these buildings no longer exist, and that he kind of catalogs the city while he walks the city and documents it. I thought the whole idea of a city is movement. Lots is going on. So I really love the idea of grouping it together. So we try to emulate that in Amsterdam to keep it together.
Let's take a look at how they did it in Paris, Paula. So very different. They don't have the same kind of space, but they had a large space to fill, much larger space than we have here in Chicago. So I thought this was another equally great way of displaying these works and giving them power. And I'll just mention a little bit about Wesley. He would travel around the city with kind of a portfolio of these works under his arm. He would draw from bridges and other vantage points. Of course, he was an untrained artist, and he was essentially practically adopted by Illinois Institute of Technology's renowned architecture school that was founded by Mies van der Rohe, originally the German architect, and they loved the incredible architectural work that he did, the perspective he gave as an untrained artist. So these are really amazing, and he's of course another favorite. We have lots of favorites here at Intuit. And Paul, I think are we close to the end of the slides? So Hans, I couldn't resist sharing this with our audience today. You sent this to me. This is such a fun picture of you with Queen Maxima of the Netherlands. And I think that it's a fascinating photo, but maybe you could explain the relationship of the Outsider Museum with the Dole House in
Yeah.
Haarlem, and the fact that you're the director of 2 museums, and what's happening here. You've recently renovated in Haarlem. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so the museum in Haarlem was first founded, and it's called Dole House. It's nothing to do with dolls. It's an asylum. It's a mad house. House is it's a building, it's a house, and doll is a kind of middle-aged word denigrating for someone with psychiatric problems. So every major Dutch city in Holland, province of Holland, had a dollhouse. So also Haarlem, the original Haarlem, it's to the west of Amsterdam. And it was opened in 2005 as a museum of psychiatry. And we did a complete renovation and we became the Museum of the Mind. So we explore the mind in Kerr, in science, thinking about the mind, other cultures and other times as well. And of course, through imagination, through art, things that are not here yet, but which we create and which flow from the mind, so to speak. And as the oldest part of the building, the first mention is about 700 years, 1319, it's a long way back. So we treat that whole period of 700 years. How was the mind treated? How was it cured? What do you think of? We think of the mind. How does it work? How come it doesn't work? That was on the way, and then I came upon the former director of the Hermitage Amsterdam in 2015. I was on an advisory board of an outside art gallery. I still am, and she said, "Do you want to make an exhibition in our building?" I want to make an exhibition in our building. Why? Yeah, well, we have some extra space which you don't use. And it was the ugliest space in the world. It had been a store. It was tiled. There were columns everywhere. There was this lighting was no daylight. What do you say to the director of the Hermitage? You can't say, this is the worst room I've ever seen. So I said, it's a fantastic idea, but it's a little small maybe. And she said, well, we also have this and we can knock down some walls and we can, she really wants this. So we studied it and said, well, we don't have any money. Do you have money? They didn't have any money. So we said, okay, it is a fantastic idea to create a venue within the Hermitage Amsterdam where it's very highbrow. It's art beyond any question. If we have a Rembrandt, nobody would say it's not art, not the Dutch public at least. To be able to kind of be the Trojan horse inside such a venue with outside art, that's a fantastic idea. So we searched and found some money, and we found a Kerr organization which loved the idea as well, which became the third partner. And then we signed all the paperwork, and someone said, we should ask the Queen to open it. So what a fantastic idea, but we have 2 months. Wow, you can always try. So everybody put together what a Rolodex they had and said, how can we get to the court? And someone found a way in, and we asked, do you have time in your agenda? You can say, please come and open our exhibition. Would it be fitting in your agenda to do us the honor, blah, blah. And immediately she said yes, through her personality. Wow. So 2016, March, she came and opened the museum. And this was at the opening. I gave her a tour. You can see on the left side, it's Shinichi Sawada. So we had a huge collection from Japan, which had been on show. And we took to England, to London, to Switzerland, and parts of it to France, to Nantes, and which was still with us. And we put that on one side of the museum, and our starting collection, what you had, is only a few works, about 50 on the other end. So to compare our collection with an internationally very strong collection, and Shinichi Sawada had been on the Viennese Art Biennale in 2013. And in the Netherlands, it was like, yeah, outside of art, that's, yeah, but is it really art? all these annoying prejudices against art outside the canon of Western art. And I must say, a lot of my colleagues, museum directors, gallery owners, nobody was willing to touch it. We have to change that. It's fantastic art. Look at the quality of this art. So and it had been on the Viennese Biennale, and then some people said, okay. That was Massimiliano Gioni from the new museum who curated that show. What was it called? The Palace. It was an amazing show. I went there. It was Cindy Sherman meeting Shinichi Sawada, meeting Boyce, meeting everyone. Rosario de Obispo. It was amazing. Bao Bray. You had artists from all over the world in the canon, outside the canon, and it was amazing. If you can get the catalog, please buy it. It's great. Encyclopedic Palace. Thank you. Someone is just posting it. Encyclopedic Palace. It started out with this huge model for a museum to be built in Washington, in the United States. A huge dome, kind of a St. Peter's Vatican style thing, and that should be the biggest library in the world. And it was built by an Italian man with Italian roots in the United States. This has to be a building which contains all the knowledge of all the world. So the Encyclopedic Palace. And he had little train house models and everything. And Shinichi Sawada. So finally in the Netherlands, people said, okay, now we're getting it. Often in the Netherlands, if something comes from outside, then we kind of, okay, now someone gave me credit, now we can appreciate it as well. So I thought, this is ludicrous. We had a huge museum in the Netherlands which went bankrupt, and the whole collection is now on loan to a museum in Belgium, which is a great museum, but it's no longer on show in the Netherlands. So we have to correct that. So we started collecting. There was a couple who gave us a fund who was taken aback by the first exhibition and started collecting. And this was at the opening. So Queen Maxima came and I gave her a tour and I stood on her toes. Really, I did. She had new shoes, pointy shoes. This image, and also that she came, it was all over the world and all the press. It was amazing. She's the queen. She's the minister's daughter, married to our king, but okay.
But they didn't put in the press that went all around the world that you stood on her toes. That was just a
No, nobody knows. Don't tell. She had new shoes. It was like in the print of her handbag. It was not a real panther. It was fake, and it was pointy shoes. And I had new shoes, pointy shoes. So I stood on it. And, oh, I'm so sorry. And she said, "Never mind. I love it here." So that was great. And she came and opened our museum in Haarlem in November.
Right. So just recently, you reopened the museum
no hard feelings.
in a little moment of COVID relaxation, right?
Yes.
And she came with her mask and joined you again.
Came with her mask, and if she stood up, she had to wear the mask. So the whole. So maybe you can show. This is a little model of the chapel, which is the core of the museum, which is from 1319. So the opening ceremony was in the chapel, and we could invite 18 people, including the Queen. So I thought, well, let's not do it. But in the end, we did it. I'm glad we did. She unveiled a stained glass window, which was put in there by contemporary artists, female artists, great artist. Please come and see one day. It's amazing. And on the mind, and then we had all kind of artists in the exhibition, which she met, outside artists, contemporary artists. Doesn't matter. We don't make any distinction between the two in Haarlem. And she did the tour and put on a mask and waved to the people and then went. But that was great. So we were open for 3 weeks, a lot of publicity. And we had to get back tickets, but December was sold out for us. So we hope to recreate that once we're open again. Yeah.
So Hans, I have a few more questions for you, and I'd like any of our guests to also be typing in questions into the chat for me to ask you. But, typically in Europe, we use, oh yes, let's recognize our sponsors before we close all the slides out. Thank you, Paula. Typically, we think of Europeans as using the terminology art brut, and we know that the terminology of the field
Something wrong with
is
my sound, sorry.
a kind of a, right, but you chose the term outsider art museum. I was just saying that tell me about your choice of using the outsider art museum as the terminology.
Yes. Yes, I'm aware that that's a sensitive term now. I was criticized for it. I went to a Getty conference in Germany. It's organized by the Getty Foundation, and people, well, also museum director said, well, you shouldn't, and it's not, you can't have a separate outside art museum. So why not? And now it's part of the art world. Totally agree. I said, when are you going to show it? There was people from Kunsthalles and from major museums, Folkwang Museum in Essen. I said, you have a contemporary art museum? Yes. You were founded when? 1890 so-and-so. I said, why? Because your colleagues were only showing classical statues and salon paintings, and you didn't agree, and you started your own business. That's what we're doing. The moment that you start placating the world with outside art, call it a name, we'll be the first to join you, and you can observe us. But until then, we're very necessary. And why outside art? Art brut, of course, that's the original term by Jean Dubuffet. You mentioned him already. Before you had Hans Prinzhorn, which his collection is in Heidelberg. He worked after the First World War, and he collected works from institutions, mental health institutions in the German-speaking world. And I think he was trying to find ways to connect to beauty after the horrors of the First World War, especially following the manifest of an artist group called the Blaue Reiter, the Blue Rider, a German group, which said for original artworks, you have to look in asylums, children's paintings, and prisons. Whoa, where did we hear that before? That, I think, is what Jean Dubuffet did afterwards. And he called it art brut, as he was from a winemaker's family. What's the best wine in France is champagne, of course. What's the best champagne? The wine, the champagne with the less added sugar. So that's called brut. But this is both the concept and the term are problematic to, I think, our audiences, especially after Roger Cardinal, who tried to explain this to his publisher, who said, no way, no English reader is going to understand collect art brut. Explain it to me, and he explained it, that you have the stage, which is the arts, and all the artists on it. And on that stage, of course, most artists play the play by the rules. So they have texts, they have the lead role, but there's also actors who don't have a role, who don't have text, who do their own thing, they're on the stage. And you don't see them because they're not on the spotlights. They're outside the limelights. And that's why the publisher said, okay, so these are people outside the lights. Yes, I call them outsiders. Although Roger Cardinal protested, that became the title of the book. And I think if you look at sports or politics, there's also always the dangerous outsider who wins the prize. And I think that goes for this art as well. This is too long, it has been overlooked. Like, yeah, but is it art? Or yeah, but the artist can't explain voice, or he doesn't know art history. Well, who cares? I mean, who set these rules in the first place? I think it's Ruskin from the 19th century who made himself king of the critiques, and then ruined reputations or put people on the shields. And I think we should do away with that, because it's discriminating. That's discriminating. It's closed. It's narrow-minded. It's only these white old Western men who make art, and African modern art. Is there African modern art? No, we have non-Western, whatever. And that's so good about the show of Massimiliano Gianni. He said, he opened my eyes, and I think a lot of people's eyes, to the creative fountain which is there. And if you look at that, then anything can be art, yes. And we stuck with this term, and I don't mind. I pondered on vernacular art. We have solitary creations, but I haven't come upon a better term than outsider arts. And to me, it's also kind of a resistance name, like it's a rogue name. Like, yeah, we're the outsiders, yes. But never mind us, we get there on our own. So, and that's what you can see from Chicago Calling, from our collections, from Collection d'Abru. And it's a bit like it's artist art. If you invite an artist and you show him around and say, I wish I would have invented to paint a tree like that. Why didn't I? How come I never thought you can paint a tree like that? And that's what I love about artists. They're frank, they're open. Some of them are envious, but the best ones don't hide the feeling, and they're inspired. And that's an open mind. And we should always look at the world with an open mind.
So well, one of the questions we have here is, Hans, you're not considering changing the name. You are sticking with outsider. Yeah. And for Intuit, I think we still use outsider despite the problematic nature, because we don't think there's been we've struggled with, is there a better term? Because as you said, in the English-speaking world, art brut is not a common term. Vernacular seems inaccessible, and for us, outsider is outside that Western, white, male, traditional, Eurocentric art world, and we're looking outside of that for new creativity and new expression and powerful art.
Yeah, and I fully agree. I think that's my take on it in fewer words. Thank you. But no, seriously, I think that's also, we shouldn't fool ourselves that a lot of people in the world are still looking at the background of artists, which we call outsider artists, and look at their biography and what's wrong with them? What's wrong with it? So they're often treated like outsiders, as if they have the best position in society. Let's be frank. People are often refused in their own shows in the gallery if they're not known by the gallerists. So yeah. No, you can enter. This is a project, because they're not dressed in the right code, or they don't have the hairdo like the rest of us, or they have dressed up and it's not like. So they're often regarded, and to me, it's more the reception history. So if you have a good gallery, a museum like our museums, which present these works, then it's a whole different outlook than if a mental health hospital would have a show for social purposes. That's good for the clients. Let's blockade the corridors with drawings they made. It's nice and they have nice colors, and it's good for them, so they can build the confidence. And often it's looked upon like, it's not. So if you present works of quality on the right venues, then we can build on the quality, and we will rebrand outsiders and outsider art as the next best thing, as the best kept secret, as quality it is, without having to be of the word outsider. Are you pushing people out? Mm-hmm. No, I'm just saying we have to bring them in.
Exactly. We do have a couple of questions. One is, what about untrained or self-taught? I think we feel like that's not, here at Intuit, we feel like that doesn't quite grab it well enough. What do you think?
Well, untrained is I think is very close to Dubuffet, because Dubuffet said the works were created in a cultural vacuum and people came up with everything themselves and didn't have any cultural difference or influences. Well, I was in Switzerland where Wolfley was, famous artist. He had a radio and he had illustrated newspapers. So he made cuttings. So he was in connection with the world. He knew what was going on. And he used that in his work.
The same with Henry Darger. We know that Henry Darger was influenced by popular culture and he was reading newspapers and magazines. He was making cuttings too. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think untrained is not the most important thing. I think for me it's more if there is a personal expression, if it's well, in modern art, it's often that if an artist and his or her life are more or less the same, that's wow, that adds to the quality. And why shouldn't that be in our field? So people live the work. Well, it's a need, it's an inner urge to make this work. And if they had some training, well, even better for them. I don't care. And self-thought is maybe they can, as you earlier said, through an unlikely path to artisanship. But more that for me, it's like that they choose their means of expression and the forms they create. They don't follow a canon or roots or established rules of the art. That's for me is more important that if someone is untrained or if it's self-taught.
Yes.
If you go your own way.
We have another couple. Sorry, Hans. We have another question I think is sort of related. Are these artists discovered or do they promote themselves? And my experience has been it depends on the artist. And many of them have had to be discovered, but occasionally there'll be one who really went after the self-promotion.
Oh, yes. Well, we had to instruct our people. The first image was this desk. People came with plastic bags and put them on desks. This is my work. I want you to put it on the wall and show it. Sure, we can have a look. No, I leave it with you, and I don't. No, please don't. This is your work. It's important. And then please explain what it's about, what this means for you. Why do you want to show it? And then, sure, we also came upon this gentleman who makes great works. It's kind of an installation. His whole house is an installation, and he himself and his pet animal became part of the installation. And he doesn't want to be shown. No, I think his work is great, but no, he doesn't want to be shown. So I didn't discover him. I had a conversation, I had a cup of coffee with him. No, but he doesn't want to be out there. So discovering suggests that someone is there and unveiling this to the world. I don't think it works. It should be two ways. People have the right to say, no, this is my work. No, it's not for you. It's not for the public. So no, that happens.
Great. Yep, absolutely. We have just a few more minutes. I noticed that a few people have put in where they're joining us from, including a guest from the Netherlands. So if you feel so inclined, let us know where you are. I'm pleased that we have people so far and wide. I see lots of friends. And we have a couple of special guests. I just want to give a shout out to. One of those is Jan Boyren. So Jan is with us. Thank you, Jan, for joining. And I'm hoping to include Jan in a future conversation. And of course, we have curator Lisa Stone, who co-curated this show and is, I'm gonna give you a little shout out, Lisa. We're going to be doing Intuit's 30th anniversary Visionary Ball on June 10th, and we'll be celebrating Lisa Stone with our 2021 Visionary Award for her contribution, fantastic contributions to the field of outsider, or in Lisa's terminology, non-mainframe art. So we're really, really pleased. I've got lots of thank yous here in the chat for you, Hans. Hans Looijen from the Outsider Art Museum in Amsterdam. Hans, many thanks to you, Jessica, Maurice, Yori on your staff, wonderful folks to work with. It's been a real pleasure for us to have such a great partnership between the Outsider Art Museum in Amsterdam and Intuit, the Center for Intuitive and Outsider Art. And once again, I want to put out a thank you to the Chair Foundation for American Art for being the sponsor for Chicago Calling Art Against the Flow and its traveling exhibition schedule. And Hans, we are all sending our strong wishes to you that the Dutch government allows you to open the exhibition as soon as possible, so that
Thank you.
it can be enjoyed by as many as possible.
It was an absolute
Any last words from you, Hans?
No, well, not my last words, I hope. But thank you so much for listening to me. It was a pleasure to be with you all, and I hope you have the chance to come over and visit Amsterdam one day. If you come before September, you might see Chicago Calling. So
Fantastic.
Please be invited.
Okay.
Thank you.
And Paula, we've had a request to show the video of the exhibition one more time. Thank you. Thank you, my friend Hans. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you all for joining us. And we hope that you can join us again next week for our conversation with Lisa Runquist about her forthcoming Darker book. Watch your email for more information about that. Thank you.